Welcome, everyone. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Michelle Rosado. I'm one of the Ability Tools Program Coordinators here at California Foundation for Independent Living Centers, and I'll be moderating today's Earth Day Accessible Gardening event. For audio description purposes, I'm a Latina woman in her 40s with fair skin and curly red hair. I'm wearing glasses and a black and white shirt. Behind me is a lavender Ability Tools Zoom background. Please allow me to review some of our accessibility options available for today's meeting. If you'd like to access captions today, you can do so by going to the meeting controls found at the bottom of your screen and select the CC icon titled Live Transcript. You can click the option Show Subtitle to gain access to captioning. And then alternatively, you can use the Stream Text link, which I'll drop into the chat shortly. Stream Text is a great option because you can change the font size, font color, or you can make the captioning full screen. Please note that we use the chat. We try to reserve the chat for networking and interacting with one another. So have fun connecting, but questions should be entered in the Q&A located in the meeting controls at the bottom of your screen. Or you may raise your hand if it's more accessible, signaled with a raised hand, which is also a function located at the bottom of your screen on the meeting controls. We'll be reserving the last 10 minutes of our webinar for Q&A, and we'll do our best to try to address everyone's questions with the time that we have. Thank you so much for sitting through some of my housekeeping today, and I will now hand it off to today's organizer.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us today for the Ability Tools Annual Earth Day event. On this slide, the Ability Tools and Common Roots logos are situated above the presenters' names. My name is Catherine Crowley, she, her. I'm a Chicana with tan skin, sunset colored hair, and glasses. And I'm also CFILC's Deputy Director who oversees our Assistive Technology programs. We're really excited today to be joined by Heidi Carton, the Executive Director of Common Roots Farm in Santa Cruz, California. Today, we're going to be showing information about assistive technology that can assist in caring for your little piece of our planet, while also caring for yourself and potentially your community. You'll learn about devices and methods that can help reduce water usage, make garden maintenance a breeze, and even give you a behind-the-scenes tour of Common Roots, an amazing urban farm designed with people with disabilities in mind. As I progress through my slides, I'll be naming off devices, and as I name those devices, a picture will accompany the description of the device and its features. First off, what are your goals? Are you looking to start or maintain a career in agriculture? Participate in a community farm? Maintain your own lawn or garden? Create a planter garden? Or if you're like me, is your first step keeping your potted plants alive? Whatever your goals may be, we're here to help you reach them. Just always remember that before you start any new potentially strenuous activity, it's always best to consult your physician or physical therapist. Gardening nurtures your body and soul, helping you find peace and feel productive, while also strengthening your muscles and improving dexterity. But if these activities will be a big change for you, you'll always want to be sure that you're using the right tools for the job, and your physical therapist or someone trained to give an AT assessment can help ensure that. Now, if your goal is to work in agriculture, there are a few resources you should know about. First step would be to connect with the Department of Rehabilitation. Vocational rehabilitation services are designed to help job seekers with disabilities obtain competitive employment in an integrated work setting. DOR can even arrange an opportunity to work in a realistic work setting to demonstrate if you can benefit from DOR services. You'll need to request services by first reading their Consumer Information Handbook, then by visiting their How to Apply for Services page. but please keep in mind there may be a waiting list for services. Next up is California Agribility. Their mission is to promote independence in farming and rural living for people with injuries, disabilities, and illnesses. Individuals are eligible for Cal Agribility services if they reside in the state of California, have a disability or long-term health condition, and work in agriculture. Eligible participants can benefit from farm site assessments, recommendations of modifications, equipment or AT, and outreach and presentations to help farmers, ranchers, and their families continue to do what they love. Cal Agribility partners with the Department of Rehabilitation and CFILC's ability tools to assist farm families living and working with disability to access needed assistive technologies. Next up, Agribility is a nationwide organization that has even more additional resources like information related specifically to arthritis, veterans, and funding assistance. They also have a trainings and events page where you can see if there will be any educational events near you. Then there's the Toolbox, which is an online resource containing information on a ton of devices that are helpful to people with disabilities who want to get their hands in the soil. And as a note, these slides are going to be going out to everybody, and all of these links link to everything I'm talking about, so you will have everything at your fingertips. Now, if your goal is not to work in agriculture, maybe you want to participate in a community farm or garden at home, there are additional resources you should know about. First, California Agribility does have a strong focus on employment in agriculture, but they also support home gardeners. So please reach out to them if you want support that isn't strictly employment-based. Not only do they participate in webinars with ability tools every year, they also partner with ability tools, device lending, and demonstration centers to ensure that Californians have access to AT for gardening and agriculture equipment that fits their needs. Also, if you take a look at the Agribility website that I shared on the last slide, you'll see sections of the toolbox that are dedicated specifically to gardening and lawn care. Check out your water utility provider websites to see if they have any rebates available for smart irrigation devices. For example, Sacramento City Water Supplier has a rebate program right now that has smart sprinkler systems for free through instant rebates. Not only does this make lawn and garden care an easier, more accessible process, it's also kinder to the environment as it reduces water usage to only what is needed to maintain your plants. Some providers also offer lawn replacement rebates that can make it much more affordable to transition your space from a water-guzzling lawn that is finicky to care for to a water-friendly space that takes much less effort to care for, opening up more time and energy to care for the plants that you would rather focus on. Options include installing a rock garden or even a clover lawn. Clover lawns need significantly less water and only need to be mowed a couple times a year, so you can focus on other gardening needs, and they also help immensely with pollinators. Speaking of which, Thrive has a great list of bee-friendly plants that you might want to consider including in your gardening plans. Speaking of choosing plants, consider planting plants that are native to your area. Plants like these will thrive with very little watering and tending. You can look to places like UC Davis, who not only have tons of information about California native plants and how to plan your garden, but also if you're nearby, they have really great plant sales. Additionally, many cities have free tree programs. Trees are fantastic at keeping water in your lawn and cooling your home, never mind their beauty and air cleaning capabilities. Try doing a Google search for free tree programs, including your city or county, and see if there are any active in your area. And finally, if you're interested in participating in local community farming, like Common Roots, you can visit the Community Alliance with Family Farmers, or CAF website, and look at their California farm directory. And I saw that we had quite a few people joining from across the nation. They also have a directory that gives nationwide information, so check it out too. You can find farms by crop or products, or even find nonprofit or farmer of color owned farms. Find someone near you, and maybe you can work or volunteer there, or even get tips on how you can start your own community garden. Speaking of selecting what items your little piece of earth will contain, if you're on the spectrum, have sensory processing disabilities, are blind or deaf, a sensory garden might be a great option for you. A sensory garden doesn't just focus on how pretty a plant is, it considers all the senses you can use when interacting with your garden. Options you might consider vary widely. If you're wanting to enhance your auditory experience, you might consider ornamental grass, which will rustle in the wind, or creating a rock garden under wisteria or a nut tree. So not only can you hear the sounds of the small creatures it will inevitably draw, but you can also listen to the sound of their seeds scattering as they hit the rock bed. You can incorporate wind chimes, rain chains like the one shown on this slide, or a water feature and plant an abundance of plants that support pollinators like foxglove, snapdragon, or aster, so you can sit in your garden and listen to the sounds of trickling or bubbling water with the buzz of life around you. If you're wanting to focus on your visual stimulation, consider what you are trying to accomplish. If you want to awaken yourself, you might consider using a variety of heights, textures, and colors, planting plants using spacing that allows them to grow into their natural shape without a need for pruning and avoiding overcrowding. That way you're getting a diversity of size and shape, and the environment feels natural and varied. Also keep in mind that if your vision is impacted by your disability, you might want vibrant, stark color that will stand out to you, in which case you might also want to consider bright yellows to really stand out. However, if you're wanting to calm yourself, you might want to consider choosing soft or pastel colors, or even using plants without colorful bloom, sticking to a calm sea of textured green. You can choose plants that flow with the wind to create a visual sea, choose trees with thin canopies and delicate leaves so that when the light breaks through, you have shadows dancing on your garden. Or you could forego most or all plants and create a minimalist rock garden, like the spiral rock garden shown on this slide, where you can visually find peace where you might not be able to in most spaces. If you're interested in stimulating your sense of smell, you can go down the traditional floral scent path and you can plant roses, sweet peas, lilacs, or gardenias, as shown on this slide, paying attention to when they bloom and choosing plants that bloom at different times so that your garden is almost a different garden every month. Or if you want a calming experience, you can plant lavender, chamomile, or lemon verbena to turn your garden into a space of relaxation and recentering. If you prefer to stimulate your sense of smell and taste, along with herbs, you can plant vegetables, berries, like the raspberry shown on this slide, and fruit trees in lieu of flowers or flowering trees. You can plant a variety of thyme along a garden walkway so that when you walk through your garden, the aroma is released with every step, or even create an accessible nook or a place with a bench in your garden, like the one on the slide, as a touch spot to plant varieties like rosemary, mint, or geraniums, which release their scent when you physically interact with them. Now, talking about your sense of touch, you can choose trees with heavily or uniquely textured bark like furrowed valley oak or knobby cork oak, or like crepe myrtle, which has a really cool laminated bark that'll peel if you're too rough with it. Fill your beds with moss that is spongy, springy, and soft to the touch, and line pathways with tall, soft plants like lamb's ears, yarrow, or fountain grass. Hang baskets of soft and tickly ferns to choose plants with leaves that are velvety or furry like purple passion or white velvet. Place large rocks or beds of pebbles that you can touch and even grow moss on to have a diversity of texture in the same object. But remember to choose plants that will tolerate a lot of handling, like smooth succulents that are very satisfying to run your fingers over and will not be damaged by a bit of petting. If you live in an apartment or rent a home where you can't modify the existing landscaping, you don't initially have a lot of space to work with, but that can be easily solved with a bit of ingenuity. Railing planters are a wonderful option for any space with a railing because it utilizes space that might otherwise go unused. You can hang them over both sides to double up your space, or just hang them over this outside to maintain an accessible reach to your plants. Hanging baskets are another option that's great all on its own, allowing you to use as much overhead space as you desire or have available. But if you pair them with a pulley system, you optimize access to anyone regardless of which height best serves them. Upside down planters are another great use of space. taking plants that would otherwise need to be trellised lest they sprawl, and enabling a bounty of tomatoes, herbs, or strawberries to be harvested in a relatively small amount of space. Wall garden planters are great space savers as they take advantage of wall space to grow your plants. Rather than being restricted to a single line of planting space, you can utilize the entire wall above it with this great tool. And last up are finally pots that will actually touch the ground, like most traditional pots are wont to do. Tiered pots take advantage of our vertical space theme by allowing you to grow upward with the separate compartments designed to stack on one another and allow you to grow a lot of plants on a very small footprint. Now that we're done talking about spaces for our gardens, let's take a closer look at some of the tools at our disposal. Gardening is great for body and soul, but being mindful about how we manage our energy and pain can be a crucial part of this great activity. After all, if we ignore pain, we will be more likely to injure ourselves. And if we don't manage our energy, we might need to leave our projects unfinished. Knee pads are a great option to save your knees from any pain of getting down into your soil. And a kneeler bench is a fantastic multi-tool as it can sit with the padding in a lower position to protect your knees. And it can also be positioned with the padding on the higher position to serve as a bench. This tool is emblematic of this section as it not only protects pain in your knees and back, it also provides you respite in the form of a durable seat that can also hold onto all of your tools for you with its handy little side pockets. Next up are kneeling pads. These are good for people who want to be near the ground and stay near the ground. I know that with my chronic pain, I prefer to stay in a single position. The constant switching is what really drains my energy and brings the pain on. With these simple foam kneeling pads, you can kneel with them or sit on them for cushion and slide along the ground without ever needing to rise up only to immediately lower yourself again. Compression gloves are a fantastic tool for anyone who lives with arthritis. These gloves enable you to continue pruning and planting when you otherwise might not have been able. And finally, drip irrigation. If you find yourself knackered out after your day of gardening, or maybe you just don't have the energy to go out and water regularly, drip irrigation is a great option as it slowly provides water to all of your plants, taking that task off your plate and also saving water and water bill money in the process. Now let's talk about how we can get a grip. If you have limb or digit difference, gloves can be a challenging need to fill. One of the simplest ways to get what you need is to go to a tailor and see if they can either make you a custom pair or even modify an existing pair that you think would work well. You can customize them for one-hand use, for hand, finger, or thumb amputees, for those with specially shaped hands, and can even acquire seamless designs to support sensory needs. I've done this a number of times to support my sister's needs. It's usually a pretty simple process, not too bad. And if you really want a great tutorial for a quick modification hack, Jack Chris, who has EEC syndrome, has a great video on YouTube that you might also find useful. Another great option for people who need larger tools to accommodate their grip is foam grip tubing. You can simply cut this tubing to fit whatever tool you have, and it will increase the diameter of whatever tool you're modifying. If you want to create a custom grip with a flare to match your style, you can always buy grip wraps, which will not only enable you to create the exact thickness you prefer by overlapping the tape and creating a wrap that has this tackiness that's going to help you retain a hold on your tool. That's probably my favorite one. Okay, let's talk about some tools that we can set and forget because they are so smart they don't even need us to do their job. First up, we can talk about smart or automatic irrigation systems. Now, we touched on these a bit earlier when we were talking about those instant rebate programs some water companies are offering. These things are great because they take the task of watering your lawn entirely off your plate. You can get a smart system if that's your thing, but a basic automatic irrigation system is far cheaper and less daunting to set up. You just set up a watering schedule and it does the rest. These can work with just a simple sprinkler head, or you can pair it with your existing sprinkler system, or even better, a drip irrigation system, and you never have to worry about watering your plants again. Next up are smart mowers. Now, these things can be pricey. They can range from $700 to $2,500, but man, if they aren't great. Imagine a Roomba, but for your lawn. You set up a perimeter and the lawnmower automatically mows within that perimeter, and then it returns to its charging pad to get ready for the next mow. And lastly, a Lomi is a countertop composter. This is a great way to turn your food waste into rich soil for your garden. You simply put your food scraps into the composter, and once full, turn it on, and after a few hours, you have nutrient-rich soil so that whatever you didn't eat now can now feed your plants. Now, a Lomi's price ranges from between $500 to $750, although there is currently an awesome Earth Day, Earth Month flash sale going on where you can save 20% or more, making the range a bit more like $350 to $500. Remember, you do not have to feel exhausted and frustrated in order to have an accomplished day of gardening. Work efficiently, not harder. One of my favorite tools to raise my efficiency is an auger drill bit. These things are a great planting tool. You simply pair this bit with your drill and you can instantly drill a hole into the ground just the right size to pop in a bulb, bedding plants, or seedlings. Choosing softer, lightweight soil eases the amount of strength needed to dig and plant, and that simple swap out equals saved effort. And you will have energy that you can now use elsewhere. Small electric trimmers can be purchased to trim grass, bushes, or anything else that needs tidying up. Using an electric trimmer saves your hands so much work of opening and closing shears that this trade out is really an easy choice. Consider investing in a mower that is self-propelled. The less energy you need to pushing into that monster of a machine, the more energy you have to prune your rose bushes. And lastly, plant movers come in many varieties, like the dolly type shown on the slide, or a type that looks like round versions of those creepers that you use to work under your car, or even straps that enable you to do group lifts of larger items. This could save you a lot of work and potentially a thrown out back rather than trying to deadlift a fully loaded potted plant. Let's talk about mobility. First up, wagons are great to transport heavy items and keep things you frequently need at near reach. Look for designs that have tilted pulling handles that can accommodate pulling from any height. Seated carts are also great options so that you can work from a seated position. The model I have linked in the slides has a swiveling seat so that you can more easily get started and move around when seated to be able to gain access to all of the areas around you. This model even has a nifty little storage basket for all of your favorite tools. A wearable garden stool could be a great option for people who need to have a place to rest always there. And this way they don't ever have to carry it around with them. The one that I linked to in the PowerPoint can hold up to 660 pounds, so it can hold you, your tools, and your plants as you work. Now let's talk about potted plant watering tools. Whether you have a memory, cognitive, or mobility-related disability, watering your potted plants can sometimes be challenging. Luckily, there are quite a few tools that can assist you in achieving your potted plant perfection plans. First up is one of my favorite tools, a watering globe. These globes are beautiful blown glass bulbs that release water into your soil as your plant needs it. You simply fill them with water and then spike them into the soil of your pot. These are great because they typically have a see-through component, providing a visual cue that your plants need some attention before the plant provides visual cues of their own by the way of wilted leaves. Next up are self-watering pots, which look like any other pot except that there's a reservoir at the base of the pot that holds water that is then wicked up into the soil. These come in clear varieties or have indicators that will visually tell you if the water is running low in the pot. Additionally, there's a great product called LECA that I was fortunate enough to learn about from a fellow colleague. Basically, LECA is a bunch of clay balls that expand when exposed to water and can water your plants for you. Please keep in mind, though, that LECA does not contain any nutrients, so it's just a medium to provide water, so you're going to add nutrients to the water in order to feed your plant if you utilize it. A simple yet effective tool is to click a set reminder on your phone or on your smart home hub to remind you to water your plants. I find calendar reminders for weekly tasks to really help relieve some of the mental load of trying to remember all the tasks I have to do throughout the week. And finally, try habit stacking. If you have something that you already have a habit developed for, like taking out the garbage or going to religious services, water your plants when you do those things. Habit stacking takes advantage of those well-established behaviors and associates a new desired behavior to coincide with them. Give it a shot. Now let's talk about adaptive hand tools. When selecting these, if you have pain or reduced strength in your hands or live with chronic fatigue, you might benefit from looking for lightweight options. I know that this seems counterintuitive, like a good tool is a heavy tool that's going to last forever, but no, a good tool is a tool that will enable you to do the work to the best of your ability and enjoyment. So first up are ergonomic garden tools, which will not only be the kindest to your joints if you already live with joint pain, they will not contribute to the progression of that pain. And if you don't live with that pain, then this is a great preventative tool to avoid acquiring it. Next are the easy grip hand tools, which keep your wrists straight while working, eliminating unnecessary rotation and strain. Next are ratcheting pruning shears, which makes it so that when pruning, the tool is doing most of the work for you. And finally, the PETA Easy Grip handles are a really great tool to have in your gardening bag because they can be attached to any tool, enabling you to more easily rake, sweep, weed, or shovel. Adjustable reach tools are awesome for those of short stature or for those who work from a seated position. Telescoping and stackable handles facilitate access from near or from far, eliminating that need to crouch or stretch. First up are extendable loppers. These can prune trees or bushes in a snap, and they are really strong. I took apart 8 Italian cypresses in my home with a pair of these, and it has this really great feature that you can also grab with them so that you can snip a branch and then move it without leaving your preferred position. Next are extendable rakes. This really is a 2-in-1 tool because you can use it as a traditional rake, and then you can collapse the handle and move your gathered leaves into the composter or green waste bin using your giant rake hands. Absolutely wonderful. Next are the Easy Grip long reach garden tools. These are super lightweight and have the Easy Grip upright soft grip handle. So basically you're working with that natural grip for your hands rather than straining your wrists. Additionally, you can pair this with the Easy Grip arm support cuff, which provides a way to keep that safe ergonomic hand positioning while also utilizing the strength and stability of your entire arm, shoulder, and back. And finally, a telescoping fruit picker enables you to gather fruit from your tree from any position. I personally love these, and I use them all the time for my orange tree. Next up, let's talk about accessible garden beds. These are some great tools for those of short stature, those who work from a seated position, or those with chronic pain. There are some really great options out there. First, let's look at U-shaped planters. These provide access from all sides, and you're able to wheel right in between and have access to everything at arm's length. They also raise the bed so that you can easily reach the plants from a seated position. Roll under planters are another great option. You can roll right up to this planter and have no obstructions to your legs. And lastly, root vegetable grow bags are a great option that eliminates getting onto the ground to harvest your root vegetables. Rather, you grow above ground level and have doors that can be opened from the side when it's time to harvest. And let's finish up with some ingenious gadgets that I just really, really love. A self-coiling hose is wonderful because struggling to gather that hose at the end of the day, or worse, trying to detangle a hose, is not something that brings me joy. With this tool, you never need to gather or detangle again. A water splitter may seem like a weird tool to have on here. Like you may be wondering how this could be useful if you don't need to have 2 points of access to water. But the greatness here is an incidental element. I know when my grandpa was maintaining his lawn and it came to watering, his arthritis made it terrible to turn on that water spigot. He would end up busting out a wrench by the end of it. But with splitters like these, they create these great large levers that just need to be flipped up or down to turn on and off the water. A nut gatherer is not only a cool and efficient tool, it's really fun to use. So even though it can save you pain and the trouble of bending and gathering nuts and gum tree balls, that might be a moot point, because if you have a kid in the house, they will 100% volunteer to clear the lawn for you if they get to use the bingo cage to do it. Also, a trigger release water lance helps you get even to like the farthest points of your garden to make sure all of your plants are getting the watering that they need. And the cut and hold flower gatherer eliminates bending, facilitates one-hand operation, and is lightweight. It'll reach to the back of flower beds or high climbing plants. And the best part is that it holds what it cuts. So you can use it to gather flowers, deadhead roses, or get some light pruning done. One of my hands down favorite tools. And now that I have your mind swirling with all of the tools that are available to get you started on or enhance your gardening journey, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Heidi to teach us about Common Roots Farm.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm excited to be with all of you today. My name is Heidi Cartan, and I'm Philippe. I am a 60-year-old white woman wearing glasses and a pink shirt, and the background is my home. Common Roots Farm is a nonprofit or organic farm in Santa Cruz, California. And if we could have the next slide, please. We are what's called a diversified market farm, meaning we grow a mix of food crops and flower crops. We have about 20 different food crops, about 25 to 30 varieties of cut flowers. In honor of Earth Day, I like to point out that we do a very strict crop rotation here for the health of our soil and our plants, but also the health of our people. Organic farming to us means a great deal more than just not using herbicides and pesticides, but also being very aware of the health of our entire ecosystem here on the farm. So we strive to do that as well as we can. That includes cover cropping. And so we have healthy soil practices that we'll talk about a little bit more. Next slide, please. We are a farm that is really trying to answer the question of how do adults living with disabilities who have pretty impactful disabilities and may have both severe mobility impairments, but also we were founded to specifically provide opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our community. And so we are doing production farming with the products that I just mentioned, but we also take a section of our produce and turn it into value-added products. So the slide is an image of honey, shrubs, hot sauces, pasta sauces, and variety of shelf-stable products that we also produce on our farm. Next slide, please. We're about a 4.5 acre parcel, and about 3 acres of our farm are cultivatable space. Again, we are working really hard to try to create opportunities for people with and without disabilities to steward the land that we have the honor of taking care of. We're on the largest remaining agricultural parcel within our city limits. And we have terrific soil and a long history that, of course, goes back to indigenous populations for cultivating this land. And we feel a real responsibility to do it in an earth-friendly way. And we love the fact that at Common Roots, people with disabilities are taking a lead role in stewarding this property. Just to give you some idea of some of the features on our farm, We have a greenhouse where we do all of our own propagation, everything except our strawberry plants that we do from starts that we purchase from another grower. Everything we grow on our farm is started in our accessible greenhouse. We also have 40 or so laying hens. We do sell our eggs. We have sheep and a couple of dogs on our farm. We do a weekly CSA for about 22 weeks of our season. A CSA, for those of you who may not be familiar, is what's referred to as community supported agriculture. So this is the way for customers in our community to support us from the very beginning of the season by purchasing a share in our farm. And that entitles those customers to a weekly bag of fresh produce and a bouquet of fresh cut flowers for a 22-week season. And so that is the kind of the core of our production. We use what are called low-till methods for those of you who are at all familiar with farming, much gentler on the soil. But we do that really both because of soil practices, but also really because we wanted our farm to be a more intimate experience for people. We wanted folks who come to Common Roots as a community farm to really experience literally, hands in the soil, your body out in a natural setting, in a place that's producing food and producing beautiful flowers, but also having that experience yourself of what we call from seed to salad. So being able to start a plant from seed, nurture it through its production cycle, and if it's a consumable, be able to enjoy harvesting and eating it. And if it's a flower, be able to enjoy its beauty in your home while it's also adding to the health of our pollinators on our farm, which are critical to us as well. We also have a small orchard. All of our trees are on semi-dwarf stock so that we are not requiring the use of orchard ladders here. We can do everything, from the ground, using some of the tools actually that Catherine mentioned around harvesting and so forth. We also have an accessible raised bed garden, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And our big infrastructure project for this year is to build a wheelchair accessible barn. This photo on the right of this slide is a trainee on the right who worked with our farm about 2 years ago, Annabelle, who has gone on to work for a very well-known farm in our area called Pie Ranch. I encourage you to look into that if you're not familiar with it. And on the left is my son, Noah. Noah is a 27-year-old white young man who does have cerebral palsy. He uses a wheelchair for his mobility and has become a farmer and is quite passionate about that now. So he is responsible, along with other folks who come to the farm, for a lot of the propagation that we do in our greenhouse. Next slide, please. This is a slide, just an overhead shot of our farm during the production season. We just had a very wet winter here in California, so things are very green right now. But this photograph shows our bed practices. All of our farming beds are 100 feet long. They all have wider furrows than what you would find on a typical production farm, and that's because of the folks who are coming to our farm. Some have, in addition to mobility impairments, challenges with their balance, for example. And so we just created some wider furrows in order to be able to have the maximum number of people and different abilities able to enjoy the farm and be productive on it. So we've made some modifications to what we would call traditional farming methods in order to accommodate a wider range of people who are actually doing the production on our farm. Next slide, please. This is a slide with some information about the physical features we've added to our farm to make it more accessible. But I know the slides are going to go out to all of you. So this is something, if you're interested, you could take a look at it in more detail later. But one of the things I wanted to point out that we're trying to do at Common Roots is we're really working hard to apply universal design principles to a farmscape. And I think that's what makes us a bit unique. You know, as a parent of my son, Noah, it was very frustrating to me as a avid lifelong gardener that I had trouble taking him to environments and places I wanted to visit, including working farms that kids usually love to see because they just weren't accessible to wheelchairs. And so being able to have a place where people who are using a variety of mobility tools to get around on our farm can do that comfortably and access all major areas of our farm has been really important to us. So we've had partnerships with some fantastic foundations and donors in the community, helpers community in particular, put in a perimeter path that surrounds the entire farm and brings people to all the major work areas, the greenhouse, the wash pack station, where the animals are, etc. And that's been really important to us and has really opened up the farm, I think, to many, many people. And just like universal design in housing, you know, those, when you make something accessible to someone who's using a wheelchair, for example, like my son, you're also making it accessible to everyone. You're making it accessible to elders like his grandparents who were able to get around on the farm easier because of that path. It's been a great tool for parents who have young children in strollers. And it's also been helpful for all of us to get out of the mud in the wintertime to be able to still access what we need to on our farm. So we've done these kinds of adaptations to be able to allow access, but we've also invited, you know, one of the things I like to say about our farm is that we are a learning farm. Many of the things you just heard about from Catherine are tools that I didn't even know about and I'm learning about now, but we have certainly learned a lot about doing production farming in a setting which is a small scale farm with a wide variety of abilities. And that's both the challenge and the opportunity for us. And what we really, you know, we really live for that, being able to figure out ways that everybody can participate. But a lot of our farming participants have been teaching us and helping us to advance our accessibility. And that includes things like we have a young man who farms with us twice a week. And he has helped us get Braille signage on all of our tool walls in our greenhouse. He needs that to be able to access the correct tools for the work he's doing. But of course, it helps everyone else to be able to have that as well. If they need Braille, to be able to find the tools they need, the correct planting trays, sewing trays. There are a lot of different specialty items. And those are now accessible to people with visual impairments who are able to use Braille so that they can find what they need. And that's been a great thing that he has brought to us. The other thing that we really work hard on is, you know, is there, in farms, we call it a farm hack. Is there a farm hack that we can do to make a task more accessible, regardless of the need for the accessibility? It's certainly not always mobility. And one example of that is that we have built these egg collection drawers that allow our nesting hens, once they lay an egg, that egg rolls out into a drawer, and it makes it much easier to reach for people of varying heights, but also for anyone who's in a chair can access that nesting box now, which is very difficult to do. You have to be both tall and have longer arms than I do to be able to reach into the nesting box of a coop, typically, to be able to get in there. And so just this simple hack that a volunteer carpenter set up for us to be able to have those eggs roll out and be accessible to almost anyone who can then, if they can lift that drawer or get somebody to assist them and do what we call partner farming, that process becomes much, much more available to anybody to participate. I'm running a little quickly because I want to allow for time for questions, but the other part of our farm that's really critical to us is the culture we're trying to create, right? We are really wanting to have a welcoming attitude for everyone. We are very clear that Common Roots Farm is not what some people would like to call a special needs farm. We are a production farm that welcomes people of all abilities. And that production goal is very important to us. We say here, there's no pity produce. We don't want anybody purchasing from our farm as a customer because they like our social mission, but get home and find out that their produce is not good or their flowers aren't lasting long. That's not acceptable to us. We have a very high standard of what we're producing and what we're selling to customers. And it happens to be that we have a wider range of people who are producing that food and relying a lot on volunteers and people who are coming once, twice a week throughout the season to help us do that. So we're constantly doing training and we're constantly teaching people. And one of the things I love is that a lot of those people then get inspired to go back and do home gardens and do things along the lines of what Catherine was talking about earlier and using those tools that she mentioned. Next slide, please. Just going to have some photos for you. The picture on the right is of an elderly gentleman who has a visual impairment and needs to get very close to the soil to be able to experience it and do some sowing. He's doing this in a raised bed. We're using some roll under beds that are called Terraform. Maybe we can put a link in the chat or something so folks can get a hold of those, but they're a really nice alternative that are self-watering. They're large 3-sided tubs, great for partner farming, great for people who need to be seated. But we do raised beds to be able to make gardening more accessible to people who can't get down to the ground level. We're also really working hard on, teaching the same crops and growing the same crops that we do in our field in our raised beds. Because whether you're growing a tomato on a 100-foot bed or you're growing a single tomato in a raised bed, the process is the same for how you care for that plant, how you harvest that plant, how you fertilize that plant, etc. And so we want to be able to make the teaching of those food crops that we do on a production scale available to everyone. So we also grow those same crops, including cover cropping in our raised and roll under beds. Next slide, please. This is slide is an overhead shot of what we call our seed to salad garden. It includes a large shade structure with accessible tables underneath for both workspace and gathering space. You can see what are called VEGO, VEGO garden beds. Those are the raised beds we use on our farm, and we will soon be installing an outdoor kitchen here so that we can really make good on our commitment about seed to salad and actually have a place where we can wash produce and prepare salads and be able to have our visitors and our volunteers partake of the food that they've been growing. Next slide, please. Okay, on the left is a picture of a tool that is a sifter for compost or for soil, and that soil is being sifted into something we use a lot on our farm called a tidy tray. These are potting trays that are designed at a slope with a low lip at one end and a higher lip at the other end, and they're great for mixing soil, make potting a really accessible tool to many more people. On the right is a slide of a young woman who farms with us, and she operates a battery-operated waterer with a head switch on her chair. And watering in the greenhouse is something that we do, half a year at least. There's always something to water in the greenhouse, and it takes a special nozzle to do that. And this particular device allows her to do a lot of the watering of our seedlings in the greenhouse, which is a task that needs doing every day on our farm. Next slide, please. Some things that we use. We have wagons that allow 2 people to carry them. Great to have a dump feature. The photo on the right is a tool that we welded up to be able to carry strawberry containers through our farm and our strawberry beds. Again, getting stuff up and off the ground and making it a bit more reachable. Next slide, please. Next, there we go. We recommend trying out different tools to see what works for you. We have found that wheelbarrows, though everybody thinks they're a standard on a farm, and they are on most farms, they're very tippy and very difficult for people to balance with. So we have recently invested in new carts, thanks to another donor we had, and we now are using Gorilla carts. Plastic tubs make them lighter, but the entire 4-point system of 2 wheels and then 2 other points means it's very difficult to tip, and they can also have a dump feature. So we recommend these things that are on the market now and work quite well for a variety of abilities and strength levels. Next slide, please. This is just an image of several different things that we think are worth thinking about. So many farms use buckets. We carry flowers in them all the time. They are differently, they work well for some people, and for other people, it's much easier to have handles to grab. So these are just some images of my son Noah holding a bucket. He requires 2 hands and to be able to rest it on his lap. A 2-handled plastic tub, which is in the lower left corner photo, is much easier for him to use. The center photo is a typical mixing tray that you can get at Home Depot for $7. It's usually used for plastering. It works great as a tub for mixing soil and filling seed trays. If you don't have money for the tidy trays, which are pictured on the right, and they're great, but they're about $30 each. And so no need to spend $30. If you can get to a Home Depot, you can get something much cheaper. Next slide, please. Some images of the young man I mentioned who has done our Braille signage. The tool he's using on the right is a broad fork. Great tool if you're doing farm scale for aerating soil. And on the left is just an image of he and his support provider using the TrueGrid path, the accessible path I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. And on the left is a slide of our potting table, which is sloped so that we can accommodate people of all different heights and sizes, including those who are seated. And on the right is an image of another rolling seat, which is what Catherine also mentioned, and we use a lot on our farm. Next slide, please. Who's impacted by inclusive farming? I'm kind of rushing through this, but I want to say the impact has really been on everyone. It's been a great experience to be doing this. We're still learning, but we find young and old, people with ability to communicate in verbal language, as well as people who use sign and other languages. We have a lot of folks with who are using iPads to communicate, or who are using visual boards with Mayor Johnson symbols to be able to tell us what they want to work on and so forth. We take the time to do that. And we really, really appreciate having people come to us and make suggestions, because we really do consider ourselves a learning farm. I'm going to ask for the next slide, but I think we're going to break for questions because we don't want to cut folks off if you have any questions. Anybody is ever in Santa Cruz and wants to come visit us, please go to our website. And you can definitely contact us. We are open for tours. We love to have visitors, and we're proud of what we're doing, so we love to show it off. And if you want to learn more about us, you're also welcome to reach out to me. And if you go to the info at Common Roots Farm, you'll reach me, and I'm very happy to answer questions. And just delighted to be with all of you and help show a little love to Mother Earth on this Earth Month. And I'm glad to have participated with you. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Heidi, we did have one that I wanted to run across from you in the Q&A.
Sure.
It said, at Common Roots, did you start by partnering with another organization that you can make the farm accessible for all, or was it a trial by error basis?
It was total trial by error. We did not have any partners. We inherited a fallow field with 6-foot tall weeds and no irrigation. And so everything that's here, we've just done, bit by bit, season after season.
Wonderful. And if somebody wanted to volunteer at your location, how would they go about doing that?
So go to our website, please. And there is a tab about volunteering. And we ask people to read that and kind of look at what's available, fill out a very short application. And then the process is that you're invited to do an orientation here on the farm, which is really a tour to see the place and see what the different tasks are that are available, and begin to think about fit, right? And what might work for you. One of the reasons I chose a farm as a way to engage my son and his peers, which is how this project began, was because farms have an endless number of jobs that need to be done all year long. And so we feel like we can figure it out for just about anybody who wants to come, especially if you're willing to work with us and tell us what your interests are. So going to the website is the quickest way to get signed up.
Perfect, thank you. We had a couple other ones. They're more geared towards Catherine. I think you answered a lot of the ones that we had about how to volunteer and how to visit the farm.
Great.
Okay, let's see the next one here. Allie Berman, a lot of these tools cost money. What do you recommend to those who have financial limitations? That could open up to either one of you guys.
That's a complex question, right? So
Yes.
first, if you're looking to farm as a form of employment, you're going to want to start by reaching out to the Department of Rehabilitation. DOR buys whatever you need in order to be successful in employment. So if that is your preferred funding choice, if employment is your journey, that's your preferred funding choice. You can utilize device lending and demonstration centers up and down the state, and that will help you make an educated decision about what's going to fit your needs before spending your money, so you avoid wasting money. And if you're looking for cheaper options, you can look out for local lending libraries like this, not just like libraries, like book libraries, although it does include them. The other libraries exist that have these expanded ideas of what devices they loan out. So some libraries lend out automotive tools, some loan out baking equipment, and even more general gardening tools. You can also check out Marketplace or OfferUp. A lot of times there are a lot of free or cheap options that you can scoop up. Someone tried out this hobby and it just didn't stick and they just want to get it out of their garage. You can also check out the Buy Nothing Project, which is a community project where people can offer items for free, or they can even request free items. Some really great communities built there. And we're at time, so I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Catherine. We'll be sure to answer any of the missed questions by email if needed, but I think we captured everything.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and really thank you, Heidi, for coming and telling us more about your farm. We're all really excited to watch you guys grow.
Well, thank you. And do check out our website. There is a video there that talks quite a bit about the work that we do to make it accessible, and it's probably better than I am in talking about it. But I'm also happy to answer questions. And if you send an email to the website, I will see it. So let me know that you participated in this. You have a follow-up question, I'm happy to try to answer.
And reach out to Ability Tools if you can't connect to Heidi's website. Like if you forget where to go, we'll direct you. Thank you all for coming today, and happy Earth Day. Happy belated Earth Day.
Thank you. Bye all.